Yuzu ceased to exist this week. Yuzu, the emulator that I was showcasing last time for a
Oof.
second.
Oh yeah, speaking of that.
Yeah, it turns out Nintendo took them out. They had a Patreon. They were selling early builds of Yuzu using
That's
that.
where they fucked up.
Yeah, it is. Um, and apparently, according to some of the documents, they were actively facilitating the distributing of certain ROMs and stuff of games that had been not released yet. So they royally screwed themselves by doing that.
So that's true.
So if that is true, well, they settled out of court. So
Okay.
They settled before it hit.
So first things first, they settled out of court, which on one hand is good because they were real. If true, what was found, what was being circulated in the documents, if that stuff is true, they bit the bullet for the emulator industry, right?
Yeah.
To not set a precedent because they seriously was fucking up.
Yeah.
As far as the precedent goes, Nintendo, as a condition of the settlement, they were forced to ask the judge to consider a certain statement that basically sets up something for Nintendo to point to.
Oh no! So even though they settled,
I'd have to look at this. I'd have to.
Oh, see, there's no precedent so far because it wasn't a ruled on in court thing. You can't go back and say in Yuzu versus Nintendo because in Yuzu versus Nintendo never happened.
Well, it didn't happen. The case didn't reach discovery. There was a preliminary hearing though, and that's literally the point where Yuzu settled out of court because I think they consulted their lawyer at that point, and their lawyer probably told them, "Oh, okay, so you've basically broken the law."
Yeah. So you guys fucked up, which is, on one hand, they bit the bullet so precedent wasn't set.
Yeah,
because then Nintendo would use that to go after absolutely every single emulator in the world and say emulation bad, Yuzu versus Nintendo. No matter what the reason is at that point, that's what they will cite.
Well, I'm hoping once the settlement goes through, the judge does not consider that statement.
Well, again,
it doesn't matter. The judgment's already gone through. It's done.
Again, it didn't go to full-on court, so...
It didn't go to full-on court, so it doesn't matter. But they do owe Nintendo $2.4 million in damages, which, I mean, sucks. The archive of Yuzu is still out there, by the way, people.
Also,
you can go and find stuff. And Citra, which was also part of their thing, got axed as well, which was their 3DS emulator, I believe.
Yeah, that was part of the litigation as well, from my understanding.
Yeah, so that also got the axe. But on one hand, I can condemn them for doing bad things. Okay, that's where I was getting with it. They were distributing things, and there were people going on about, how could they do this, or how are they even getting it, and talking about, or actually, I think it might have been Chad. That I saw somebody mention, they have a leaker at Nintendo and all this other stuff. They should probably go look in house, and it's like, no, it was probably from a journalist copy, which is why also Nintendo has starting to send copies out, and people get upset about it now.
Well, fuck around and find out.
When you got people who are leaking it to, say, Yuzu here, who's then ripping it and then distributing it via their Patreon, so everybody's playing Metroid Dread the week before it comes out.
Yeah.
I can understand why Nintendo's no longer giving them review copies.
I can't even blame Nintendo on this one.
And I can't blame them for that at all.
Yeah, on that regard, I can't blame them. I do not like how Nintendo handles emulation. It's been largely seen as a net positive for the gaming industry, as far as it facilitates advertisement. Here's why it's not a net positive for Nintendo. They don't need the advertisement. That's
That is
really
true
what it
too.
is. Like, it is
But
not a net positive for Nintendo.
it also gives you access to play things without being owner of a Switch. So, which is something Nintendo really needs to get on the ball of, facilitating PC
Yeah.
ports of their shit,
Yes.
which I doubt they're going to anytime soon. But between that, you have the piracy angle, which people like to go after. And it's like, well, pirates, yeah, that's fine, but outlawing emulators aren't going to prevent pirates from pirating.
Yeah.
You know, you can
won't.
sit there and outlaw ships all day you want, and the fucking actual pirates will still pirate. I mean, we have piracy to this day, the real kind, still out there. Just like we have slaves in certain Middle Eastern countries. But anyway, you know, it doesn't stop them. It doesn't stop the bad people from doing the bad thing as much as people think it will for some reason. But there's also the whole preservation portion of the argument that people like to wave off and say, "Oh, you're just making excuses for pirates," which I know. I think it was Verlis was really adamant on Twitter X about. But you know, talking about how you're just making excuses for pirates and nobody's really preserving the games and shit like that, and it's like, yeah, you absolutely are. I've got a library of old NES games on my
Yeah.
Wii
I got a
because I turned my
library
Wii into an emulation station. Am I getting that from Nintendo? Absolutely not. You know, this is the only way for me to get it. So I'm going to do it. You know, it is what it is.
Can I
Can you
share?
uh-huh. What are we sharing?
I want to show something real quick.
Oh,
Present.
okay.
Do I hit present?
Boop. Hit present. And make sure your porn folder is down.
Never.
And click add to storage when you want it up on screen.
Is it sharing?
No, you hover over the tab down here that says D-pad Chad.
Yeah.
And hit add to storage and it will pop it on screen. Or do you want me to set it? Yeah, here.
There you go. Thank you.
I got you.
So, yeah, I partake as well. And the reason being is because I've owned all these games in the past. I own a right to a copy of my games. Okay, they are all in my parents' place, buried somewhere. But I have PlayStation 1. I have N64. Actually, I only have the one, but I actually have more buried somewhere. There isn't a lot here, but I actually have more somewhere on here. But what I'm saying is, what I'm getting at is that I think stop sharing now. I was just showing that, yeah, having an emulation, having ROMs, having ISOs, not the end of the world. I'm not taking money from Sony, from Capcom, because I had Mega Man Legends. Not taking money from Nintendo because you can't really get Mega Man Legends. They don't got a Mega Man Legends collection anywhere. So Verlis can take his point and shove it up his ass. In truth, a lot of these games are going to be lost to time real quick without people keeping them disseminated among the masses. And honestly, the funny thing is, the moment the Switch is retired, what happens if they don't have the data for the Super Mario World? Do you think Nintendo's going to try and recreate it? No, they're just going to shrug and say, fuck it.
Well, no.
That's actually what happened. They ended up pulling for their NES collection. on the Switch, they pulled a ROM off of a ISO site.
Yeah.
Yeah, because Nintendo doesn't have copies of all these things either. I mean,
Yeah,
you know, on one hand, you expect, well, you guys made it. Why don't you have backup somewhere? They probably do have a backup. That backup is on a medium that can't actually properly be rigged into modern day shit anymore.
Final Fantasy
More
VIII
than
Remastered,
likely.
same deal, except it was a really passionate fan that was reverse engineering the original game and was like, "Hey, here, take this, launch a remastered version." If I'm remembering right,
What was it?
Yeah.
Final Fantasy VIII.
Oh.
And then you've
Oh
got
yeah,
things like
that's
Mother
right.
3. Mother 3 never got an English port. Ever.
It got a fan translation.
It got a
and
fan
Nintendo,
translation, and you could, do it through emulation and such.
and
But
Nintendo
Nintendo
is
never actually did a port for that. Your
I-
only chance of playing that is through emulation at that
So,
point.
I'm
for the
gonna say
record though, Nintendo actually doesn't care if about the fan translation because if I remember it, the developer was like, "Hey, stop bugging us about this. There's a fan translation."
so I'm gonna say something that people might find a little controversial. I doubt it, because
You say controversial things all the time. We'll live.
yeah, exactly. Nintendo doesn't deserve its fans at all. Their
Agreed.
fans do so much of the legwork that they should be doing.
Yeah, and
That honestly, these fans are not given enough credit, and all Nintendo does half the time is shit on them and send them cease and desist orders. It's fucking sickening. It's like watching somebody in an abusive relationship going back to the guy that just beat the shit out of them.
yeah. But at the same time, I still love Nintendo. Don't sue me. Anyway,
Me too. I'm
however,
going to be playing a game on the Switch this Sunday on my off day.
I I like Breath of the Wild. I had no way of playing it, but really, really, really wanted to play it, and I played it on my PC using Yuzu. Later, I did eventually get a Switch, and later I did purchase Breath of the Wild. But at the same time, Nintendo needs to support their shit to PC, so I don't have to go through methods like that. And
And
people can sit there and say that it's entitlement and all this other stuff, and you're damn right it is. It is digital media that is being lost to time. I want to be able to continue to enjoy it.
yeah,
Especially if it's something I bought. And we all know that those things degrade. The cartridges, the chips, everything will degrade. Those copies of Mega Man X 1, 2, and 3 that I have somewhere buried somewhere, I can't play them on any of my stuff. I have to either get like a Retron 8 or 9 or whatever it's called. And even then, I don't know if it's going to, it probably will still work. But if it's a game that has like save files, I would probably have to break the case open with Nintendo's special tools to properly do it and replace the battery in there just to be able to start saving files again, because that doesn't last forever either. But with emulation, I can put it on my computer. I can have the emulator. I can play it forever.
yeah.
I can put it on a PSP. I can throw it on the Vita. I can put it on my phone. An old Wii.
And that's really what it is. It's about preserving it for as long as possible. And nothing's forever, let's be real. But as long as possible is as long as possible. That's really what it's about.
And also allows you to experience things you may never have gotten the chance to. Is it entitled to say Nintendo should give me access to it? Absolutely. Sure, we'll go with it. It's entitlement to say that. But they should. Especially when they have an overpriced online package thing that you have to buy, and they don't give you much in a way of a reason for buying it. but you can't play or trade Pokemon or anything else on any other games that have multiplayer without it.
Yeah, I've never understood why they have. Okay, I do understand because let's be real. If Pokemon was on console and you could trade between consoles via internet connection, or if it was on PC and whatever, nobody would buy their handhelds. Literally, Pokemon is there to sell their handhelds. And if Pokemon was not on, if they took Pokemon games and did it just on their consoles, I mean, handheld and console is one and the same now for Nintendo with the Switch, but say it wasn't, and they had Pokemon on console exclusive. They discontinued the handheld version. It was just, and they just had other games on handheld, but Pokemon was on console now, and you could trade via internet connection. Nobody would be buying those handhelds.
I'm totally lost with this analogy.
I'm just saying that. I'm just saying that you talking about Pokemon reminded me like how people are like, oh, handheld Nintendo's the biggest seller of handhelds, and I'm like, really? Because I think Pokemon's the biggest seller of handhelds.
Well, that's only because Nintendo's the only one selling handhelds. So, you know.
Yeah,
The Switch is technically a handheld still.
But again, I'm saying that if the Switch was not just a hybrid system, I'm saying if Pokemon was taken from a handheld and put on a console only, do you think, and this is just a hypothetical scenario I'm creating, do you think that Nintendo would sell remotely as much handheld consoles if Pokemon was not on there?
Well,
Yes.
I don't think they'd
Yes, they
sell
would.
as many consoles.
Really?
Yeah.
What game would
If
push the handheld?
if Pokemon was on
Every game in their
consoles,
library still.
was on consoles, are we talking about consoles and also handhelds, or
We're
just a
talking if
singular
they.
console?
We're talking about if the Switch was just a handheld and then they had a separate system for a console. If they did, I would presume that that system is much more powerful than the Switch,
Yeah,
which
I
means
mean,
it would
I'd buy the
actually be on
console.
par with Xbox and Sony. And can you imagine what it would look like if you had Zelda in Unreal 5?
Oh, yeah, I
Holy
think I
fucking
can.
shit. Yes, that would push consoles if that was the case. If you took Pokemon and just stuck it on the console, would people still buy the handheld? Absolutely, because they still like to have something on the go that's not their cell phone.
Yeah.
And, my
What
kid
game?
has his Switch absolutely all the time when he goes out. Well, not all the time, but, when he's going to certain places or whatnot, he'll take the Switch with him.
What's he play?
Fortnite, because it's available on there. Mario Kart, Smash,
Okay.
Zelda,
What
and
handheld
Pokemon.
exclusive does he play?
Do what?
See, that's the problem is we're talking about things that are hybrid to the Switch.
Things that are hybrid to the Switch. Honestly, I can't think of too many things that are hybrid to the Switch.
He
Or
just
that
named
are
20 of
hybrid.
them, Smol.
No, I think
Zelda?
he's trying to get at what if it was just purely on the handheld? Why would you want the handheld? The handheld is purely for ease of access.
Yeah.
You can grab it, you can go. But Chad is trying to make the argument that if, say, Pokemon wasn't on a handheld and it was purely into a console like the Xbox or, a Nintendo equivalent to that, and not on the handheld, would the handheld continue to sell? Yes, because it
handheld.
sold before there was Pokemon. It would sell if there was no Pokemon.
I mean,
I've got a
yeah.
whole set of old Nintendo or Game Boy games back here that made it worth having that little brick back there. And in today's age, it would be no different. Instead of, Pokemon, the mainland game, it might have Pokemon Unite or something on it instead, which wouldn't be, or Pokemon
It's still
Misfit
Pokemon,
would
but
still be
okay.
released for that system. And the argument I think Chad is trying to make is like, it's an argument that has no place. I guess
Not
is the best
really.
way to put it.
It was just a mind exercise.
I know it is, but there's just no way of not marrying the two. If Nintendo had a separate console still versus their handhelds as two separate entities and not a hybrid, they would still absolutely have Pokemon on both, but they may be in different capacities. Like for the 64, they had Pokemon Stadium. During that time, Pokemon in 3D was just a myth. But I know a lot of people who bought their 64 to play Stadium. So, back in the day. Or
Dude, that
they
was my
talked their
jam.
parents into buying it anyway.
It wasn't the reason I got an N64, but I did get Stadium because that looked badass.
Yeah. And
I
it
will.
would probably be a similar thing if it was in modern day. It's just we would have a much better looking Pokemon game on the console, and then they would have like somehow like a handheld battle your friends or trade system or something through the handheld.
Well, I will say this. You did bring something up that kind of answered the whole thing for me, which was the Game Boy, the original Game Boy, had like
Yeah.
Tetris, Wario. I think Wario Land was on there too.
Yes, it was.
Um, I'll be honest with you. I think Nintendo would be better if it had. Hear me out, because I think a lot of people are gonna be like, "You're out of your fucking mind." I think Nintendo would be better if they abandoned Pokemon.
Honestly, yeah.
No, keep in mind, I don't mean abandon like complete. What I mean is their library for a lot of their like handheld kind of thing has been for years. Pokemon, 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 Pokemon's Fire Emblem, Pokemon.
No, I had a bunch of other stuff too.
I mean, it did, but they didn't push none of that compared to Pokemon.
Let's see.
I mean, I'm not, Zio, I'm not arguing with you. I'm agreeing with
I
you.
know, but I got to now.
I mean, hell, they had Final Fantasy Tactics Advanced.
Yeah, which sucked ass, by the way.
Oh yes, absolutely.
DS.
I felt like I was scammed when I bought that game. I was expecting an amazing port of the Lion Wars.
All right, we've got Final Fantasy 3, Pokemon Heart Gold,
Pokemon.
Yu-Gi-Oh. Is that Yu-Gi-Oh?
I don't know.
Yeah, that's Yu-Gi-Oh.
I don't play Yu-Gi-Oh.
That's another Pokemon. Out of that,
you're proving my point.
Well, no, because I was a huge Pokemon fan. That's why I would have Pokemon games.
Okay.
But I have other stuff. You've got the Chrono Triggers, right?
Yeah.
Of course, there's other Final Fantasy games. You have Advance Wars, which were fun.
Advance Wars.
You've got Metroid Prime Hunter, which was interesting.
Is that the one where you? No, that's not the one where
that's the first-person shooter multiplayer thing.
Oh.
Where it was like Quake, but as Samus and friends. And then you have the Mega Man Battle Network series.
Samus and Friends, that's a Saturday morning cartoon I didn't get to see.
I'm pretty sure that's on the hub. Anyway.
Oh, God.
You've got the Mega Man Battle Network series.
Okay, you can keep that one.
There's other Mega Man games, of course, that came out for it.
That BattleNet series was such a...
You know what I like about the Mega Man Battle Network series?
That's far away from me.
The guy that says,
look at that.
Jack off, everybody.
Oh, yeah. I do like that. I got that meme on my phone.
Check off.
Oh, man. Yeah, that one was rich.
This is just some of the stuff I have. I got other stuff elsewhere. And then, of course, before that, you've got Spyro sets of games, which, love them or hate them. There's, of course, 2 more Pokemon games in here for the
Now,
Advance. You have
now,
Dragon Ball Z as well.
okay. All this is
Um,
well and good. What did Nintendo push?
There's more Mega Man.
How much
Battle Network.
advertisement did you see for?
Well, when I watched TV, a lot of this stuff was advertised, and I saw it through there. Like
I've
the
only
Mega
seen
Man
like
Battle Network.
I did see Battle Network and Pokemon.
There was
I didn't see anything about
Metroid.
Chrono. No, that's not true. I
Hmm.
did see like Chrono Trigger for the Game Boy Advance like a couple times, but
I
it was
learned about
rare.
Chrono Trigger's release, which is why I have it, through a commercial. There were Zelda commercials. But in reality, a lot of the times, Nintendo doesn't really seem to market, from what I can tell,
Yeah, they
in the
really don't.
US very well. But
Yeah,
in Japan, all of it gets marketed.
Yeah, they really don't market good at all.
So, yeah. But they do, but the things do exist. But at the same time, some of the stuff, the only way for me to reliably play it is if I emulate it.
Oh, absolutely.
And if I want to stream it, it's definitely through emulation. I know I now have a capture card for my Switch, which is great and all, but a lot of these older games, I know I could go through the trouble to find the connections and all that stuff and set it up, but I also don't feel like spending $100+ making that happen.
Another issue is that the Switch's emulation of these games is at a lower resolution, which is why you got the bars on the side.
Yeah, then there's that too. And of course, again, because Nintendo doesn't have everything, things get lost in time, and sometimes they have to go hunt for a ROM on the internet. So I think they would wind up shooting themselves in the foot if they pull down absolutely everything.
They already did when they got rid of Emmy Paradise. They found out that there was like several ROMs that Emmy Paradise had and only they had for
Yeah,
Nintendo products that were gone.
yeah, and they'll just be lost unless somebody else uploads them somewhere.
Well, on the bright
Luckily, there
side,
were people out there who did preserve a lot of that stuff too.
And there's
So
totally no way to use Emmy Paradise today, guys. Not at all.
yeah, absolutely not. Anyway, but yeah, again with the Yuzu thing, they took a bullet, but also at the same time they did some things they shouldn't have done. Now, on other news with Yuzu, totally not related to Yuzu, is now apparently making its rounds somewhere, which is also a Switch emulator. And then there's another emulator for Switch too out there. That's not as good as Yuzu or Nuzu, but
Ew,
it
what was it
exists.
that we said was going to happen if they close this down? Something about a vacuum of power?
the Pirate Bay Part 2 Electric Boogaloo.
I mean, again, the internet finds a way. So,
Yeah.
it is what it is.